episode of Inside Fnatic's Brunch. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be your host as usual, Matt Scott, going over week 3 LECs, all the ups and the downs, and the unfortunate losses of Fnatic and double losses to make it even worse. Unfortunate 0-2 for boys in black and orange for this week. But yeah, we'll get through that today. Obviously, we'll get to mourn the first losses. You know, it happens. It happens. There won't be a lot of people who will be able to duplicate the 18-0, even though Rogue is starting rather well. But we'll see. There's still some games to go. There's more than double the games, so anything can happen. Anything can happen. But in any case, for today, our usual schedule of Week 3 LEC Recap, going over Fnatic's performances and games, and the usual Week 4 predictions. You guys are absolutely obliterating me. I thought by doing the occasional spicy pick that I would maybe get an advantage, but it's playing against me since week 1. The gap between you guys' votes and my predictions, it's gonna be very hard to to reach back to you guys. So we'll see. We'll see. Even though it's only week 3, it's gonna be a hard one. In any case, guys, thank you for joining me. If you're in the chat, give me a little hello. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for taking the time to watch the VOD. Looking at the LEC week 3, obviously Rogue still at the top of the standings, still undefeated 7-0. I think one of the most impressive teams so far in the LEC. Obviously because of their score, but because of the way they're playing. There seems to be few teams who can actually compete with them, and the changes they've made, again, thinking about replacing Inspired and Hans Sama was a massive task, and Marang and Comp were not necessarily some sexy names, let's say, to replace them, but it feels like they're better picks for this comp of Rogue, and they're working much better for them as a whole. So I think they find the right people here, and I mean, it is a bit sad to say that one Korean jungler is just taking over the whole of jungler players in EU. It's reminiscent of the gaps we used to have before. We thought we maybe surpassed this, but it feels like it's still there. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of for us to catch up on this. Again, it's only week 3, but very strong showing for Marang and Comp as well. Now, joint second, obviously, we have the eternal rivals of Fnatic and G2. Fnatic taking 2 losses, and G2, on the other hand, taking 2 wins. So they've joined each other there. And Mad Lions, Misfits, still in sort of that middle of the table. And then on the second half, 3 teams that are fighting for that last spot in playoffs. Vitality went 1-1, which was a bit surprising, to be honest. But well, no, it wasn't, because I believe they faced Rogue, right? So obviously, yeah, no, it wasn't surprising. Like, they won the game they were supposed to win, and Rogue was the bigger challenge. And Astralis still winless. It balances out undefeated team versus. Sorry, apologies. I'm gonna put my phone on silence. There we go. I was gonna say undefeated team versus winless team. The balance is full here. So obviously, for my 3 teams that are at the top of the week 3, I've put Rogue undefeated, impressive. I don't think anyone's gonna beat them on the first half, which would be um, is it, if I'm not mistaken, what, the first game of week 5, right? So I think they're gonna go 9-0, and maybe on the second half, someone has their first loss as the teams are improving. BDS finally scores their first 2-0 week. The very rough beginning of the week 1 and 2. Obviously against lower team, Astralis and SK, I believe. Um, have I got this right? I believe that was the case. I forgot to write it down, but I'm pretty sure it was against Astralis and SK. Yeah, it was Astralis and SK. I don't know why I was confused for a second. I should be more confident. And yeah, I mean, for me, this team still revolves around Syncroft and Nuclear Int. Syncroft was probably like top 2, top 3 junglers right now. It's quite impressive what he's been able to do. We've seen a bit more different picks for Adam on the top lane, and the team seemed to have play a bit better as a cohesive unit. Again, we're talking bottom of the standings team. They're gonna face stronger team next week, so we'll see if they're still able to keep up, or if that's basically their limit, which would be around 7th or 8th. It's gonna be a challenge, I think, going forward. They beat the teams that they should beat, who are really struggling right now, but they haven't done really well against any potential competition that they would have to beat to make top 6, in my opinion. But still, gonna give them their praise when the praise is due here. So good job, BDS, and hopefully you keep improving, and it wasn't just a flash in the pan here. And third team, kind of hurts me to say this, but it is what it is. G2 gets a strong 2-0 week. I say strong. It's not necessarily true, to be honest. Like against Misfits, they were that close to lose. They had a good base defense. Misfits also kind of scuffed it by deciding to target opponents instead of turrets, and then doing half and half at the same time. So it was almost the return of the Elder Drake incident where G2 completely throws it out the window and Misfits closes it on that single plate. But this time, I guess they learned their lesson. They were able to defend and just run it down to Misfits base. Obviously, they won against Fnatic. Fnatic, who had the better early game, but very bad team fights, and an Aatrox that just kind of got loose in the end. Aatrox, who seems to be a very strong pick at the moment. I wasn't expecting that, and I don't know why. I can't explain. I've not seen any of the analysts or casters explain, or maybe I haven't heard it, but why suddenly Aatrox is appearing on the scene. We've seen him in NA. We've seen him a few times in EU. Like Armut played it for Mad Lions, and he was the reason why they won, despite a very horrible game. I believe it was against Excel. No, not against Excel. Sorry, against Astralis, who was playing well for once, and he was there. He became the win condition. Just couldn't be killed. So too many healing, too much resistance in team fights. So yeah. So 3 teams who went 2-0 this week. And the bottom, instead, unfortunately, we're finding Fnatic. They had to stumble. They couldn't be always at the top. Their first weeks, despite the wins, have been a bit questionable in some games. Losing hard in early games, still able to come back, which is a strength in its sense. especially for team fights. Eventually, it does find a limit here where we're going against one very strong team, which is the best team, which was Rogue, and then a G2 team who seems to be doing much better than last year for now, with some promising, one promising rookies and two, I guess, good players with Broken Blade and Targamas. So yeah, a bit of a disappointing week, obviously, even more when you're losing against your rival. I don't think there's much, fear to have. It's still the beginning of the season. We're still top of the table. Sometimes you need a big reset to improve. So I guess it's happening at the right time. What counts, obviously, is making it to the top 4 for playoffs to get to be in that upper bracket, and then have the best performances in a best of 5. But we'll talk a bit more about Fnatic. Obviously, we have a dedicated section for that. But yeah. So I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, well, why did you put Astralis? Even they went 0 into it, but they're a bad team. Last time you said you would put teams in those top and bottom, depending on their expectations. Well, my expectation for this week's games, maybe it was a bit high, but I thought Astralis was we're starting to find their footing. There we go. In week 2, they had a very promising game against Mad Lions, and they were super scrappy with us. So I was like, oh, maybe that's their style, being super scrappy, just brawling constantly and forcing the enemy to play their style. And it feels like whatever direction they were taking last week, they've completely thrown it out the window. They were terrible this week. They were terrible. Week 2, there are actually signs of hope. You're like, oh my god, they're actually a bit exciting to watch. They're actually a bit competitive. And this was just like a bunch of bronze players that got together and decided to build an LEC team. They were all over the place, just got demolished. I don't know what happened. Like, I was so hopeful for it. Maybe I inhaled too much copium, but I thought they would potentially go 2-0 last week. They were facing BDS, who was still looking very rough. They're facing XL, who had just removed Advien and had to fit in Mickey. And nothing. Just bad decision making, bad moves, bad mechanics in some situations. When I praised them last week, I put them as a little asterisk next to the top teams. 0-7, and with the performances they showed on week 3, they could possibly do an Origin, which is funny because they are Origin in a sense, like they took over Origin. But I mean, like, unless it's against SK, I don't think they beat any of the teams above them. I don't think they do. So at best they go 2-16, and at worst they go 0-18. And at that point, I don't know what happens with the LEC, to be honest. Like, it should be like, when you play football. When I used to play it back in my dorm, right, and you didn't score a single point or you had negative points, you had to crawl under the table. And if you had negative points, you had to crawl extra times for every negative points that you have. So yeah, maybe that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna have to crawl out of the LEC. No, I don't know. It's a bit disappointing, especially when you realize there were good players available, and you could at least create a team that was semi-competitive. Like if you took players like Niski, Mickey, Broxa, and then you put like Dashor in the mid lane, but surrounded by actual veterans, not semi-veterans. Um, you know, White Knight is White Knight is White Knight. You know, he can do some decent stuff, but yeah, it's you got to start yourself asking yourself questions. Now I know that Astralis put that post, saying it is complicated, but I feel bad for the players that basically they're part of an org that doesn't seem to want to be putting much effort or maybe much budget into like a real team strategy, and they're happy and getting low cost players, without necessarily like a lot of, not saying star power, but actual potential to carry the team. So I don't know, maybe Astralis needs to reconsider their spot in the LEC, because they were gloating about, oh, we never actually ended 10th, but yeah, mate, you were like, what, top 8, top 9 at best? You never made playoffs, so kind of weird. Kind of weird. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about this week 3. What I maybe will add is I think we're starting to see potentially the playoffs teams, albeit maybe any sudden changes, but I think we're looking at Rogue, Fnatic, G2, Mad Lions, Misfits, and Vitality. Not necessarily in this order, but I mean, bringing in Mickey is not going to get Excel a playoff spot. Because what's potentially going to happen is that, let's say maybe Mad Lions, Misfits are 5th and 6th. That seems to be maybe the trend, because I think Vitality is going to keep climbing and get at least a top 4 position, even though they have a difficult win rate at this stage. I think they're going to still continue performing, improving, get some more 2-0 weeks and on their way forward, and get top 4. So yeah, and Misfits is actually a really decent team. Vito is performing really well. Has some obviously great stats on his own. Schlatan's playing decently. I think Herrit is the one who's kind of struggling at the moment. And yeah, that's about it. I'm pretty pleasantly surprised by Mersa. I think he's doing a decent job roaming and being present for the players. So yeah, I think Misfits is a solid team. They'll probably win maybe 1 to 2 best of 5s in the playoffs, but at least they're way more exciting than any team below them. So that's my take. And all of this, feel free to clip any of this when we get to the end of the season and potentially Misfits is not top 6. But I think there's a pretty big discrepancy in level between the top 6 and bottom 4. All right. With that said, it's time to go into the painful part of the podcast. The 0-2 weekend. That one hurt. That one hurt. For 2 reasons. So, first of all, there was the Rogue loss. So, Rogue game was undefeated versus undefeated. Fnatic obviously had a bit of complicated games. Managed to go 5-0. Looked much cleaner in the final game against Misfits, which, in my opinion, was maybe one of the strongest teams we faced. Vitality obviously looking better, but at the start they were struggling, 0-3. So Misfits for me was the bigger challenge. The fact that we had the fastest game of the season from them, and we just played super cleanly, despite VTO trying his hardest to carry Misfits. So I was hoping that we would continue and snowball on that progress. Instead, what happened is that we couldn't execute our comp at all. We had like a big wombo combo with Diana, Oriana, alt. We tried for the first time Lucian Nami. Didn't work out. Marang was just super present on the map. Um, we were winning lanes, and that worked against us basically. Marang just kind of played in terms of pathing. A bit disappointed in Razork not able to answer the pressure that Marang was putting and defend his lanes and leaving them without, you know, potential vision. Maybe it's a lack of communication, but it was good that Razork was ahead in farm, but Marang was so ahead with gold with the kills that he was like, it's actually super hard to go 1v9 with Viego, right? Because Viego needs Viego is not gonna one shot you. Like, he needs to put his spells, he needs to Q, he needs to stun and everything. And even his stun, his stun slows himself, so he needs to be already close, so be within vision and everything. So it requires a certain level of skill, and Marang just played it perfectly, in my opinion, and he just completely outplayed everyone. We struggled, we couldn't execute. They picked us off continuously, and we can get the big team fight. So basically, nothing happened that game for Fnatic. They just got torn apart, and bit by bit, losing space on the map. And we eventually lost the game. Like, Rogue was definitely the better team, and they are the best team right now in the LEC. So that was the first game. Then the second game, that one hurt as well because we lost against our rivals, right? Now, a different scenario here where we had a much better early game. Humanoid. Now Humanoid has to be the best laner right now. The best mid laner right now. He's continuously ahead in farm, 5 to 10 CS roughly, and he's pushing the enemy to hug their turret. And because of that, he's always victim of ganks because he's always pushed super far ahead. So I think the team needs to play around that. With that said, he had some crazy shuffles on his Azir. Caps just got thrown away constantly. What happened is that G2 was reading Fnatic's attempts, so they managed to get it the first time, but then they got collapsed on. Targamas was here with his Zillion that was super obnoxious. And I mean, I think Zillion is just a counter to Fnatic for their hyper aggressive playstyle where it's like, nope, you can't just come in and fight and kill someone. We're gonna revive him. So you've just put all your engage on him and you've got nothing to fall back. So good pick from G2 obviously here, and then from one bad team fight to another, we just kind of lost space. Humanoids. Humanoid just had a very bad week. I think Razork and Humanoid are maybe tried to play differently, a different style, and either had a hard time to adapt or just isn't working for them. Humanoid had some very questionable plays. A few times on his Azir, for instance, he didn't press R to disengage, and on his Oriana at one point, we just walks up to Rogue, tries to sombrero ult, just gets destroyed because there's 2 or 3 people on him. And I don't know what he was expecting to do. If somehow he was gonna one shot. I believe he works on Gwen as well, which she builds HP and everything. So I'm not sure what was the objective here. But yeah, that was not the play. And Razork missing a few skill shots. Especially on his Lee Sin, which is supposed to be his best champion. So I don't know. I don't know if he's a bit anxious about joining this team, playing with those players, putting some pressure on himself because he wants to perform so well. Like if anyone watches Fnatic's content, like the voice comms or the highlights where you can see some behind the scene, he is his biggest critic, and it's good to be like self-critic, definitely. But is that actually getting to him in a sort of mental way where he's overthinking stuff and therefore missing some simple, moves, rotations, stuff like this? So I don't know. We'll have to see. Obviously, the team is going to be working on it, but very very rough week for Razork and Humanoids. They're definitely very good players, and again, if you listen to their content, they're very aware of what's going wrong within the team. So I don't think there's a need to be afraid in that regard. I think we can. Obviously, it sucks to go 0-2, but I think we can you know take some solace in the fact that those are veterans, within the different years of experience that they have respectively. Um, they know exactly what went wrong. They're still working around it. They're very conscious that their first 5 games were not as clean as they should be in regards to the final results, obviously, and that maybe they're receiving this loss on a positive note to say, hey, you know what, it had to happen. Um, we're gonna still work and improve, and I'm not stressed about it. Again, we're still top 2 season. There's still more than half of the season to go. More games to be played, more improvement to be shown. The meta is gonna change as well. Again, the objective is to go top 4, get into that upper bracket, give ourselves more space to progress as well. Even if we lose the first best of 5, we still have another one to go, obviously, if we make it in the upper bracket. So, negative results, positive probably outcome, in my opinion. I think we're going to bounce back strong. For now, Rogue can have their undefeated streak. G2 can have their laughs about the rivalry. Sure. Listen, we'll see the results in the end. We'll count the chickens, and we'll see who has the last laugh. That's all I have to say. Um, you gotta lose some to win some. So if Rogue goes 18-0, good for them. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. There's gonna be some meta changes. There's gonna be stuff where they're gonna have to adapt. Maybe they're gonna want to sandbag some games to try some new stuff as well for the playoffs. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Cool. With that said, time to move on to our predictions. And predictions, the score is widening more for me. There's a 6-point gap between both of us. You guys keep voting on the Twitter, which is super cool, by the way. I received a bunch of so yeah. Here's something I wanted to talk about. Maybe I should have added it as like a segment, but I basically just took a funny screenshot of the video from the highlights where Razork is just like bantering with Wunder, where I think because Razork is wearing like a big jacket because he's feeling so cold. Apparently, it's so cold in the gaming apartments. Like, hello, is someone paying the heating bill? Like, get them some electric heaters or something. If the only reason why Razork is having some mechanical issues is because his hands are cold, like he said in a previous tweet. Listen, buy a heater, whatever kind. Put some extra budget on hand warmers. Sam Matthews, I'm talking to you right now. Help our boy Razork. I cannot have him have troubles on landing Qs on his Lee Sin because you're not paying the bill. Pay the goddamn bill, get some man some heat, and let's win some games. Help him to help you. Help him to help you. But anyways, yeah. So he's wearing his coat, right? And I think Wunder was like, "Yo, where are you going? Or are you leaving?" And I think, and Razor says, "Yeah, I have an appointment with your mother," which I thought was very funny. And apparently, it's a very Spanish thing to do. I wouldn't know, but I took the screenshot. I tagged Razor in it, and it was a late night tweet as well. So I just went to bed. Um, it had maybe like 5 likes at best, which I don't really care. I just post memes. If you guys like them, that's cool. If you don't, it's the same. I just need to make my Twitter the IFB podcast Twitter account live. By the way, if you want to subscribe, the handle is over there at IFB podcast. Thank you. But yeah, and I wake up the next day. I see Razor like, and I'm seeing a bunch more likes. You know, we're passing the threshold of like 50 likes, 100 likes. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I work during the day. I go back and I see so many notifications on my phone. I'm like, what the hell? The tweet is like 500, 600 likes, and there's a bunch of people that start following me. I'm like, that is fucking. Some people retweeting it, quote retweeting it. I'm like, that's just the power of Razork and the Spanish league community just going absolutely bonkers. And at the end of the day, I think I even surpassed 1,000 likes. I don't even have I barely have like over 200 followers. So that's like almost more than 5 times the number of followers to likes. So that was incredible. So I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, go follow the account. I'll post some bangers, but mainly some updates about the teams. I just shared an article from I'm gonna butcher his name. I need to look it up. It's Tim. Give me a second. Give me a second. Tom, sorry, Tom Matheson. There we go, or Matheson. I don't know. He posted an article about Wunder, so I'll usually like retweet, share, quote retweet, um, any videos, content around Fnatic. So yeah, it's not just about the podcast. If you wanna stay informed about anything Fnatic, mostly League news. But yeah, I try to keep you guys up to date. So use it as you wish. With that said, going over some of the predictions for this week. Um, Nothing too crazy in terms of predictions, in my opinion. I yeah, I'm putting a small coin on Astralis. I don't know. I hope they come back. SK has not looked very convincing so far. At least Astralis had some good games here and there, but we'll see. I'll probably get it wrong again, and SK is gonna win. But I'm staying hopeful. I'm staying hopeful. Two games that I think could go either way are the Vitality Misfits. Misfits do look pretty strong. Vitality is improving, but I still feel it's kind of random of like what type of Vitality we're gonna see on the day. So that's something to consider. And the Mad Lions Fnatic, I think Fnatic should take it. Mad Lions is still looking kind of shaky, but it's gonna depend on the amount of improvement Fnatic has done over the week, and see if they've actually like, you know, corrected some of their visible flaws Some of them are obviously being around the jungle and seeing that Mad Lions like Elioya is one of the best junglers as well, top three I think as well. I'm just scared that it's going to be another rogue situation where the jungle difference really impacts the map as a whole, and we're unable to do anything. It's because here's what's going to happen: Humanoid is going to push Reaker under his turret. It's going to gap farm gap him by probably plus 10, plus 15, and then there's going to be no vision to help him, and Elioya is going to come around and you know bang him 1v2, and where we could potentially have a very strong snowbally mid laner, he's going to be behind because he doesn't get support from with some potential wards or vision cues or info from his team. So that's for day one. For day two, yeah, we have the same predictions overall. So no opportunity for me to take over. Obviously, game of the week: Rogue versus G2. I think Rogue has this pretty cleanly. G2 was, in a sense, G2 was struggling against us in the early game, and I think just Rogue plays so well right now that it's gonna be very hard for them to do anything. I think Caps is technically should be much better than Larson, but I think Odo Amne is a better laner than Broken Blade. Malrang, I think, is gonna read Yankos's pathing, and Comp and Trinby definitely better than Flaked and Targamas. So who knows? Maybe G2 pull out an absolute spoiler game, and just upset Rogue by with their first loss. But you know, other than that, the other games, the results should be standards. It's basically the top six versus the bottom four for a majority of the games. Um, Again, I hope we don't get upset against Excel. Uh, I mean, I think we just have the better players overall, so shouldn't be too much of an issue, I think. So I'm hoping for Fnatic that we're back on track with a 2-0 week. If we lose against Mad Lions, it happens. We have to win against Excel at whatever cost. But I think it's doable. I think it's doable. For me, what I'm most excited about is to see if we're actually making some improvements. In our early game and protecting our lanes who are ahead by giving them vision or roaming for them, and see what we can do overall in a sense to actually get to the level where we're supposed to. Um, if you haven't had a chance to read the article on from the Wunder interview, he actually shares that there are some slight issues on trying to find the right play style, meshing well together. Obviously, that's what happens when you bring three players from three different teams, and you know you can't just plug and play, especially for players who are all veterans. So they all have their play style. They have stuff that's worked for them. You know, humanoids coming from two back-to-back LEC wins, being considered the best mid laner last year. Wunder, LEC, MSI, Razorg, who was basically carrying Misfits along with VTO and has been praised quite a bit to the point where he's saying that he's overrated on the LEC video, on the word association video. So that just to tell you how much he's in his own head. And I do hope that Yamato is actually helping him with that. Because Yamato is very much on like the spiritual side of stuff, the psychological aspects of the game. And I hope he is helping our boy Razork to get through those mental struggles, because He's a great player. He definitely deserves to be rated the way he is right now. And yeah, I think we also need to improve on uh, some of our drafting was definitely not optimal on this past 2 weeks. So maybe we're trying new stuff, new champs, new picks. Listen, when you're 5-0, you have a lot of space to do this. So not a problem. Not a problem. Hoping for a 2-0 week. Think it's doable. Shouldn't be afraid overall. Cool. With that said, pretty short episode today. So I hope that you'll watch pretty much everything you're watching on VOD. For those who were live with me, thank you very much for being here. I'll catch you next Thursday. Yep. I'm gonna go play some football with my friends. So enjoy your evening. Enjoy the games this weekend. And as usual, always Fnatic. See you guys. Bye bye.